Good afternoon, morning. Welcome to the Living Library. My name is Debbie, and let's read a story. Today, we're going to be reading Hanna's Cold Winter. And look at that. It looks cold. But what do we see on the front? What are our clues? Well, first off, let's look at the architecture of the building. And then what is that right there? A hippopotamus in the snow. All right, well, what does that tell us? Hanna's Cold Winter. And then what a great sketched picture of, I guess that would be a town. Wow. Those are not straight streets at all. All right. It begins. When I was a child, Sunday was my favorite day. Papa would wake up rested after working all week at the paprika mill outside of town. For 6 days, summer and winter, he would pull heavy bags of dried peppers off the farmer's cart and haul them into the gaping mouth of the paprika factory, where they were ground into a fine spice. Papa used to say that the mouth of that factory was the only thing that was harder to feed than the mouths of his 3 children. But that was on the 6th day during the week. But on the 7th day, on Sunday, Papa would sleep until the sun woke him up. We would wait for him to come into the kitchen, dressed in his suit and his red bow tie and the gold cufflinks his grandfather had given him when he got married. Well, well, he would say, trying to look stern, I suppose I shall have no peace today. I suppose I shall have to wait to sit by the fire and drink your mother's good coffee. Your faces tell me you want to go out today. We had been holding our breath, hoping Papa would say that. We had traveled all over Budapest and sometimes to the villages in the country on these Sunday outings with Papa and Mama, and each of us had a special statue or building or park. Oh, I can hear an airplane. Could be helicopters. I love the carved stone lions guarding the bridge over the Danube River. And I'm going to show you that picture. Can you see the lions guarding the river over the Danube River? My sister begged to go to the bathhouse at the Gilbert Hotel and see the painted tiles and to feel the steam rising from the water that bubbled up from the ground. Oh, I'd want to go there. Look at that bathhouse. How pretty. Excuse me. My older brother Gabor, who had pocket money, would run across the street from the baths to the market where the farmers brought their eggs and tomatoes and chickens. And he would soon be lost in the maze of cheese stalls and spice counters, but he always came out with candy for all of us. There was one place that was a favorite for all of us, but we never asked Papa to take us there because it cost money. We knew that when there was extra, how do you say their money? Forint, Forint. When there was extra forints, after buying Mama sugar and butter and the cloth for new pants and new shoes for whichever one of us had grown too much, Papa would stand in the kitchen and put his hands in his pockets and jingle his coins and smile a big smile. Then we knew it was Zoo Sunday. The zoo in our town was down a big hill and across the river from where we lived. Papa would lift Ava onto his shoulders and clasp his hands in his, and Gabor running ahead. We would walk down the hill and over the river into the city of Pest. So there they are. They're walking. But look at that trolley that goes straight up the hill. Oh, that would be interesting. Coming home, we would take the cog train. Apparently, that's the cog train that groaned its way up the hill. But going down was a game of chase, of hide and seek, and always of Papa's riddles. Little Tibor, he would ask me, those favorite lions of yours on the Lynchchid Bridge. Tell me, what is missing from the lions who guard the bridge of Lynchchid? So here, he told the riddle. I'm going to let you look at the lions. What is missing, he asks. Well, I knew that answer. I knew the tongues were what was missing. But I always let Papa tell me, and we would listen to his hearty laugh. Look at that. Soon we would reach the zoo, and the balloon men and the ice cream ladies lined the streets in front of the entrance. Hurry, hurry, one of them would shout. It's feeding time for Hanna. Hanna was a hippopotamus. Our city was famous for its hippos. They loved the warm springs that came naturally out of the ground, and they grew fat and healthy and had many babies that were sent to zoos all over the world. Our city had built them a beautiful house in the zoo. It looked like a miniature palace with copper domes and a large pool in front, and separate rooms with pools on the inside. The trees and flowers were planted around the hippo house, and the water was always kept clean. Hanna was a special hippo. She liked being in the outside pool, close to people. She often slept with one eye open, hoping that she would see the cart loaded with grass and hay creaking down the curved path. And while the other hippos rested, she would get up just when the cart reached the giraffe house next door. And Hanna was the only hippo who was ready, open mouth, when the zookeeper had his pitchfork full of hay poised in midair. She would keep her mouth open until the keeper could get no more hay in. As fast as a hippo can, she would close her mouth, and in a flash, it seemed, her mouth was open again, and all the hay was gone. The crowd would laugh, Papa loudest of all. That was one riddle he could figure out. One winter, the river between the twin towns of Buda and Pest froze. So I'll show you that in a minute. It was a very big river, and the winter had to be very cold for so much water to freeze. But no one talked about it much, as something much more important was happening to us. There was a war going on all over our part of Europe and beyond. There were now soldiers in our town on the banks of the river, and the soldiers on either side were fighting each other. The people would shake their heads, go to their works, then come home and stay inside. Papa no longer took us out on Sundays. We sat by the hearth and studied our lessons and mended our worn clothing and listened to the radio, hoping for better news. But the soldiers stayed and the days grew colder. Our meat ran out, then our potatoes, and Papa would come home with only a few onions and carrots from the market. And with these vegetables, and sometimes with some thin chickens our neighbors gave us, Mama always managed to stretch our soup pot. We were so busy thinking of our own hollow stomachs that Papa's news came as a surprise. He said, "The animals in the zoo are hungry too. I heard that because of the soldiers, no food is coming into the town, and the animals need more food when winters are this cold." Ooh, we thought of Hanna and of her wide grin and of how much hay her mouth could hold. We thought of her baby born that summer and of all of our famous hippos in the zoo. We went to bed that night feeling helpless and sad. In the morning, Papa was in the kitchen, in his suit. His hands were in his pockets, and he had a big smile on his face. "We are going to the zoo," he said, "but not for fun, not today. We are going to save the zoo today. If you children get dressed and come with me, I will show you how." We scrambled to our rooms, and in no time we're back in the kitchen. Mama wrapped mufflers around our necks. The way she looked, we knew she and Papa had stayed up late thinking of a plan to save the hippos, and that it was a good one. On the way out of our house, Papa picked up our straw doormat and an old pair of straw slippers. Gabor, Ava, and I whispered together, but we knew Papa would share his secret only when he was ready. On the way to the zoo, Papa told us what he and Mama had planned. "We're going to the zookeeper the first thing, and we will take him to the hippo house to show him the plan will work." When we got to the hippo house, we could see a frozen pond and bare trees around it. The hippos were huddled inside for warmth and shelter from the wind. Hanna had no longer looked our way, no longer slept with one eye open. We could barely tell which hippo she was. Papa walked up to the hunched animals and gently put the straw mat under the nose of one. The hippo moved but did not eat. So Papa got a pitchfork and broke the mat up and put the pieces of the old mat on the end of the fork. Then Papa offered our tattered mat to the hippo. The old hippo raised himself up and opened his mouth, and the mat was gone in a twinkling. "Well done," said the zookeeper. "Well done." After that day, on cold nights and on gray mornings, in mist and in fog and in snow, an old cart pulled by an older horse traveled the streets of Buda and Pest. "Feed the hippos! Straw for the hippos!" The people of my town ran out of doors and piled their old straw mats and slippers and hats onto the cart. The cart was filled time and time again, and the old horse faithfully pulled each load to Hanna and the other hippos at the zoo. And by the end of the winter, the people of Budapest had given 9,000 hats and mats and slippers to the hippos. Wow. The hippos did not grow fat on that, but the straw did keep them alive through the cold and that frightening winter. The war in our town ended that spring. Now I am grown up, and the cold winters and the soldiers are only a memory. But the hippos in Budapest are still living in their palace and wallowing in the warm springs. I have traveled far since those days, and every time I see a hippo in a zoo someplace in the world, I think of Hanna and of Papa and the brave people of my town who saved their hippos during the war with 9,000 straw slippers. That's pretty good. Now, I have an author's note way over here, and I'm going to read it. So if you'd like to stay and listen, we can do that, or you can turn the video off, and I'll just read it. So here we go. Author's note: where did this story come from? Ideas come from unexpected places, often from deep within oneself. It isn't clear what the wellspring was for them until time had passed and only ashes remained. But blow gently on those ashes and look for the glint of truth that holds fast while bits of fluff are lost in the wind. I always thought this book was about Budapest. Oh gosh, I know I'm going to get teary-eyed. Oh my gosh, I can feel it already. Okay. I always thought this book was about Budapest, the famous, lovely hippos, war, and starvation. That seemed enough, more than enough for a book, for a 32-page picture book. And of course, it is about those things. This story is a marvelous truth about the human spirit, how we persevere, how we believe we can affect change, how we carry and use our incredible optimism. But this book is really about my father. Not only the way he actually was, but the way I believed as a child that he could be. And if he could be that, if we could be that, the world had a darn good chance of getting better and better. I love this story from the first moment it was told to me by scholar and guide Tibor Fluop. And on my first visit to Budapest, he said his father had told it to him. After I sold the book, I was fortunate enough to be back in Budapest with my children and several nieces and nephews. We were only there a few days, and on the last day, I took the children to the zoo. I wanted to see Hanna. With the bevy of children following behind, I found the hippo house, which was closed for cleaning and feeding. All the hippos were inside, well out of sight. Devastated, I found a zookeeper who spoke no English, and I spoke no Hungarian. But who could read the 7 stricken faces before him? He could read those 7 upset faces, and he gestured for us to go inside. There she was, her head leaning on the side of her pool. Just as reported in the book, she was ready, mouth open, when the zookeeper had his first pitchfork full of hay poised in midair. And she kept her mouth open until the zookeeper could get it in no more. Then, as fast as the hippo could, she closed her mouth and munched. She was my Hanna. The father was my father. I wanted to know I could be one of those children. So the truth is, I wrote this book selfishly in hopes that I would grow into it one day. I'm getting closer. One of the most wonderful things about this book was that Barbara Knutson illustrated it. We must have been having the same vision, peering into our imaginations the same way during our solitary sojourns of writing and illustrating. My images, rich in emotion but misty in outline, were caught by Barbara, and with her immense talent, committed to paper. Barbara's husband, Chris Jensen, was the model for the father, Dad. He says, "It's all me, but with dark hair and a mustache, as I was blonde at the time. I remember the pitchfork in the hay pose was actually a snow shovel in a pile of laundry." Chris goes on to say, my hands, my mouth, my arms, my legs are attached to various illustrations of Barbara's all over the world. Other family members and friends are roughly the main characters and the people outside the zoo. Barb loved hidden treasures. Barbara's art for Hanna was lost for over a decade. It had slipped behind an editor's desk in 1992. Chris is her husband, received an exciting phone call in 2005 that it had been discovered, still in its sealed package. Chris opened it on Barbara's birthday. It was all there except for the cover art, which is right here. A second call to the publisher revealed that the cover to the book was on the art director's wall and had been there for 15 years. Chris quickly sent it down to Purple House Press again on Barbara's birthday. The experience of finding the original art had been an undertaking of almost spiritual nature, said Chris. For this collaboration, I am grateful. And for you, the reader. Thank you for taking Hanna into your homes and your hearts. And thank you to two people, Jill Morgan and Ray Sanders of Purple House Press, for keeping her alive. And here is one of Barbara's original sketches. All right, there we go. Let's see what